The janitor's name was Nolan. 12 years, he had been alone. Not just alone in spirit, like some broken-hearted poet waiting for rain, but actually alone. Flesh, bones, blood, and heartbeat, spinning in orbit around a planet that had long since forgotten him. Orbital Station 5 to 7K used to be a weather relay for the northern quadrant of Terra's exosphere, but budget cuts and newer tech rendered it obsolete. He stayed because no one told him to leave. And because there was nowhere else to go. Every 6 months, a drone delivered supplies, food packs, nutrient fluid, spare parts, and, once, a packet of old coffee beans, as if the system remembered once being human. Otherwise, the station was silent. Sometimes he'd talk to the walls, name them after people he remembered from Earth. He had one conversation with a pipe called Renee that lasted 6 days. He'd laughed bitterly when it ended with, "You're just as empty as me." He wasn't mad. Just quiet. Just Nolan. His job, such as it was, consisted of routine maintenance and minor cleanups. Mostly dust, sometimes coolant leaks. But he took it seriously. Every mop stroke was a form of meditation. Every glass panel wiped clean was a piece of order in the chaos of his thoughts. On the 6,778th day since his assignment began, at 3:12 a.m. station time, a message blinked into his console. Dock 12. Clean it. Don't touch anything else. Payment, 1 unit. No sender. No code. Just text. Dock 12 had been locked down since before he arrived. A full hull seal, with autoscrub permissions denied. The log said it had been used to house a non-standard recovery object during the Europa skirmishes, a war he only barely remembered from the news feeds on Earth before he left. He stared at the message for several minutes. 1 unit, he muttered. Someone's feeling generous. He didn't question further. Not out loud. The truth was, he didn't care if it was a joke or a mistake. It gave him something to do. He packed his mop kit. Old reliable cart with squeaky wheels, water purified from the station's recycling unit, rags that had more history than he did. And, in his chest pocket, the tiny charm he always carried, a rusted gear from a broken pressure valve, the first thing he ever fixed alone. It reminded him that even small things had purpose. The doors to Dock 12 groaned like ancient lungs as they opened. The lights flickered on only halfway, then dimmed again. It smelled of stale air, dust, and ozone. Something had been dead here for a long time, maybe not a body, but a presence. Something slumbering beneath the skin of metal. And in the center of the hangar, shrouded in shadow, was a shape. Nolan rolled his mop cart forward, cautiously. His boots made wet slap sounds against the floor. His flashlight, battery almost out, cast a narrow beam that twitched with every breath. The ship came into view. If it was a ship at all. It didn't look made. It looked grown. Tall and arched like the spine of some massive beast. Black, but not matte, shimmering with faint reflections, as if it remembered stars it had once passed. Markings glowed faintly across the surface. Not paint, not etched, alive. Pulsing. Breathing. Nolan froze. "What in the cold hell are you?" he whispered. The ship responded by opening. No warning. No hiss. Just, light. Faint and greenish, like moss in moonlight. A seam appeared down the center, spreading slowly. Metal, no, not metal, peeled away without sound, revealing a walkway. He took 1 step forward. "This isn't in my job description," he muttered, but his feet kept moving. 5 steps in, the air changed. Heavier, but warmer. He didn't feel watched. He felt welcomed. And that scared him more. A panel to his right lit up. His name appeared in cursive alien script, then shifted to English. Nolan. His heart skipped. No, nope. Not happening. He turned to leave. Then a voice, soft, female, not mechanical, whispered from the darkness. You found me. He spun. Who's there? No response. He stared into the ship's belly. Shadows swirled faintly. Then another pulse of light, this time deeper inside. Like a heartbeat. Nolan's hand trembled as he reached for his flashlight again. He didn't need it. The ship lit the way for him. Every step he took forward, more of it responded, small lights on the floor, whispers of air shifting through unseen vents, and then, at the end of a narrow hall, a chamber. And in the center, a crystal pod. Inside it floated a woman. His breath caught in his throat. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like blue glass under moonlight. Her limbs delicate, wrapped in threads of living light. Long white silver hair waved in the suspension fluid like strands of starlight. And her face was peaceful. Not sleeping, not dead, waiting. Nolan stepped closer. His reflection shimmered on the surface of the glass. His eyes met hers, closed, but not empty. The voice came again. Wake me. He blinked. How? A soft panel appeared beside the chamber. A glowing outline. Hand-shaped. He hesitated. His palm hovered inches away. This is stupid, he whispered. I'm a janitor. I mop floors. I clean rust-off vents. I'm not. You are, the voice said. This time clearer. He touched the panel. For one heartbeat, nothing. Then the chamber lit like a sun had been born inside it. Energy surged through the ship. Every marking flared to life. The walls shimmered, groaned, shifted like bones cracking after centuries of sleep. The glass pod opened. Fluid hissed down into hidden tubes. The woman collapsed forward, and Nolan caught her. Her body was light. Too light. But warm. Impossibly warm. And then, her eyes opened. Two irises, one gold, one violet, blinked slowly, focusing on his face. Her lips parted. You're not him, she whispered, voice dry as wind. No, Nolan said, stunned. I don't think I am. But you found me. He swallowed. I think you found me first. A pause. Then a smile. Faint, but real. Same thing. They sat in silence for hours in the ship's inner chamber. Nolan wrapped a blanket from the medkit around her, handed her water, tried not to stare too hard. Her name, she said, was Ira. She didn't remember how long she'd been asleep. Only that she was meant to be found by someone carrying the mark. Nolan didn't know what that meant. But his hands still tingled from touching the panel. She told him fragments. Of a war. Of betrayal. Of a prince who had loved her but couldn't save her. Of a ship made to protect a memory that couldn't die. Why me? He asked, softly. Ira tilted her head. You carry part of him. Not in body. In essence. Resonance. The way you look at silence like it's a friend. Nolan laughed. I've been alone too long. She nodded. So was I. For the first time in years, someone sat beside him. Saw him. Not as the janitor. Not as the leftover. As Nolan. And in her eyes, he felt a gravity he hadn't known he'd missed. That night, Nolan dreamed. Not of Earth. But of stars. Falling, rising, singing. And of a woman with gold and violet eyes whispering something he didn't understand. But wanted to hear again. Ira had dreamed for so long she had forgotten she was asleep. Her world had been made of music without instruments, stars that whispered names she could no longer remember, and a voice, his voice, that told her again and again, wait. One day, someone will come. When they do, remember love. Then the dreams had fractured. Something cold entered her sleep. Not fear. Not death. Just loneliness deeper than time. And then, warmth. A heartbeat. Not hers. She woke to arms, not metal, not code, human. A man's face above her. Weathered, uncertain, soft in a way she had not seen in centuries. Eyes that held no crown, no war, no past. Just, sorrow. Not the one she loved. But not a stranger, either. Ira sat on the padded bench in the center of the ship's living core, wrapped in a dull gray emergency blanket that smelled faintly of old fabric and cleaning fluid. Her body was still adjusting to gravity. Every breath felt like it was being learned again. Every heartbeat came with a new rush of memory and confusion. She watched Nolan work from across the room. He wasn't doing anything special. Just refilling a water pouch from the ship's purifier, checking a console that only half responded to him, talking softly to himself in a rhythm that seemed to soothe him. Ira had always known men like him existed in theory, quiet ones. Kind ones. The galaxy didn't often make room for them. And yet here he was. And here she was, saved not by a prince or warrior or rebel. But a janitor. You keep glancing at me, she said gently. Nolan froze. You weren't supposed to notice. I notice everything now. That's part of waking up. Then I'm doomed, he turned and smiled, trying to hide how tired he looked. Are you hungry? No, not for food. He blinked. Then sat beside her, putting a careful amount of space between their bodies. Can you tell me what this ship is? He asked. Or what you are? Because I think I'm in way over my head. Ira rested her hands on her knees. They still trembled. The ship is called Severa. She was built by my people, the Adarii, as a lifeboat. Not for bodies, for memory. We were losing the war. Not because we were weaker, but because we refused to become what our enemies did. Which was? Machines without dreams. Nolan nodded slowly. This is, a little more than dusting control panels and chasing leaks. And yet you touched the panel. You didn't run. I almost did. But you didn't. Silence stretched between them. Soft and comfortable. Then she added, quietly, you remind me of him. The one before me? Yes. His name was Velan. Was he important to you? He gave me everything. And then he died. Nolan looked down. I'm sorry. Don't be, she smiled faintly. If he hadn't, you wouldn't be here. The ship would still be waiting. I would still be waiting. He hesitated. And what am I? A replacement? You're not him. But you carry his tone. Your heart beats like his did. Slow, steady, full of regret but never bitterness. That's why the ship opened to you. I'm just a janitor, Nolan said softly. You say that like it's small. Everyone else always thought so. Ira tilted her head. Then everyone else was wrong. Over the next few days, the ship changed. Not its shape, its atmosphere. Where before it was cold, silent, resistant, now it hummed gently beneath their feet. Panels opened where they hadn't before. Small mechanical arms adjusted lights automatically for comfort. The kitchen rehydrated meals even without commands. The ship liked him. Or perhaps, remembered liking him. Ira moved through its halls barefoot, her feet adjusting to the surface texture designed for her kind. Her energy returned slowly. Memories unfurled in flickers. She found herself recalling forgotten poems, the taste of sunfruit from the gardens of Travail, the feeling of Velan's hand in hers under a twin-moon sky. And now, a different feeling entirely. She watched Nolan as he slept. He didn't snore. He breathed like a man who hadn't allowed himself to dream in years. In sleep, his face lost its tension. The way his brows softened, the way his fingers twitched, he looked like someone who had carried the weight of emptiness for so long that even a quiet night beside another soul was a miracle. He wasn't her prince. But he was, gentle. And in this galaxy, that was rarer than warships. On the fourth day, she found him sitting near the observation window. Stars drifted silently beyond the glass. The planet below them, cold and gray, reflected barely any light. "You miss Earth?" she asked, standing behind him. He nodded. "Some parts. Not the people. Just, the idea of it. Birds. Rain. Coffee. Things that didn't glow. You could still go back. Maybe. But. Then I'd be alone again." His honesty didn't shock her. It warmed her. Like hearing a familiar song after centuries of silence. "I've been alone too," she said, stepping beside him. "You had Velan. He left me in stasis. He called it a gift. But it was grief in disguise. I didn't want to sleep through time. I wanted to fight beside him. You loved him. I did. Maybe part of me still does. But that part is old. Cracked." Nolan looked at her. "And the rest of you?" She smiled. Not wide. Not flirtatious. Soft. "The rest of me is here. Now." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But something passed between them, weightless, invisible, inevitable. A tether. That night, the ship pulsed red. Warning systems activated. "What is it?" Nolan asked, running to the command table. Ira was already scanning the display. "Something's trying to connect. It's using ancient Adarii code. It knows we're here." "Another ship?" "No, a message. Repeating. Same word, over and over again." "What word?" Her eyes narrowed. "Velan." Nolan went cold. "He's dead," she said. "I felt it. I knew it." "Then who's sending the message?" Before she could answer, the ship jolted. They both staggered. Ira placed her hand on the console. "That wasn't an attack. It was a pull." "What does that mean?" "It means someone found us. And they're not asking permission." The ship's lights dimmed, then flared white. A map appeared. And from the far edge of it, a small signal moved slowly toward them. Tracking. Watching. Alive. In her private chamber later, Ira stood before the mirror. She studied herself. She looked older. Not in body, her kind aged slowly. But in the eyes. She could see the wear, the hesitation. She had been beautiful once without question. Now, she was beautiful because of the pain. She touched the side of her neck. Where Velan used to kiss her before battle. Then she closed her eyes, and imagined what it might feel like if Nolan ever touched her there. Her heart didn't reject the thought. It welcomed it. Slowly. Gently. With caution. But it welcomed it. "What if I'm not supposed to be part of this?" Nolan asked as they prepared to undock. "What if I'm just a fluke?" "You are exactly what the ship needed," Ira said. "How can you be sure?" "Because she opened." "So I'm just a key?" "No, you're a doorway." "To what?" "To healing. To memory. To me." Nolan looked at her. And for the first time since he stepped onto the ship, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe hadn't made a mistake. As the ship lifted silently from orbit, stars blossomed around them like flowers in bloom. Nolan stood beside Ira at the helm. Neither spoke. They didn't have to. And somewhere, light years away, someone else watched their path unfold on an ancient screen. A man with eyes too sharp, hands too still. His voice crackled through old comms, "She's alive." Another voice answered, "And he is with her." A long pause. Then. "Bring them home. No matter the cost." Cale hadn't dreamed in years. Not real dreams, anyway. Not the kind that feel like a whisper in the bones or a name carried on starlight. His sleep was usually shallow, weightless, brief. In exile, dreams were dangerous. They could make you miss things, like tracking signals, movement patterns, whispers of ghosts from dead systems. But tonight was different. He saw her. Not as she was the last time, cradled in stasis, her lips still and eyes closed like grief held in crystal. He saw her awake. Alive. And laughing. When he woke, he didn't question it. He went straight to the ship's console and brought up the last known location of the Severa. Coordinates had shifted. The signal was faint, like a thread drifting across vacuum, but it pulsed in a pattern he would recognize in death. Ira. He stared at the star chart for a long time, jaw tense. Then whispered, "She survived." Cale had once worn a crown. Not on his head. Not in gold or silver. The Adarii didn't crown their heirs. They chose their blood by resonance, by soul print. He was born into it, trained into it, broken by it. And when he walked away from it all, left the planet, the war, the name, they called him traitor. But he was never a traitor. Just tired of watching love be used as a weapon. He left before the collapse. Before the AI betrayal. Before the purge. He'd heard the whispers, the royal AI, the one bonded to the Severa, had gone silent. Its last act was to seal Ira in stasis. Cale had tried to reach her. Once. The ship had never opened. He'd been unworthy. Now, someone had touched it. And that someone wasn't him. It took Cale 2 days to close the distance to her last known coordinates. He traveled light, a single-seat vessel coated with stealth threading, no weapons. He hadn't fired on another ship in years, but his hands still remembered how. When he emerged from Slipstream, his heart stuttered. There she was. The Severa. Whole. Glowing. Alive. Orbiting a pale moon, slow and steady, like a heart rediscovering rhythm. And another signal. From within. He scanned. Human. Male. Not a soldier. Not an officer. Just, someone ordinary. His teeth clenched. He opened comms. Adarii vessel Severa, identify the operator. This is Cale of House Lyrian requesting communication with the pilot. A pause. Then a voice responded, not hers. This is, Nolan. Ah. Pilot of nothing. Just a guy. Janitor, actually. Cale's heart twisted. You're aboard the Severa? Yes. The ship kind of, picked me. I think. Not really sure how this works. Cale leaned back, exhaling through his nose. A janitor. The Severa had accepted a janitor. He opened the channel again. I'm coming aboard. Wait, maybe we should. Too late. The ship had already begun extending its docking arm. It remembered him. Even if it didn't accept him. Ira was in the atrium when Cale arrived. The moment she felt his resonance pulse through the ship's outer layer, she froze. Her body stiffened like glass bracing for impact. Nolan was beside her. You okay? Cale's here. Who's, oh? Nolan had a talent for making words simple. Soft. He didn't ask follow-up questions when her expression turned unreadable. But she answered anyway. He was once supposed to be king. Cale stepped into the ship like a ghost returning to a dream. He hadn't changed much. Tall, composed, his hair shorter than she remembered, but his eyes still sharp, always searching. His tunic was worn, boots scuffed, but he carried himself like a man who still remembered what it meant to be needed. When he saw her, he stopped. Their eyes met. No words. Not yet. Just the ache of shared history settling between them like gravity. "Ira," he said at last, voice low. "You're awake. You came. I felt you. In the signal." Then his gaze shifted, to Nolan. The human stood awkwardly, arms at his sides, not sure whether to bow or nod or leave. "And you," Cale said. "You're the reason she's awake." Nolan cleared his throat. "I just cleaned the floor. She did all the waking." Ira gave him a look, equal parts amused and grateful. Cale watched the exchange closely. "The ship chose him?" he asked, not hiding the edge in his tone. "Yes," Ira said. "And it was right to." Cale nodded once. Slowly. But inside, something cracked. Later, they sat in a central chamber. The three of them. Cale spoke of the outer systems, the collapse of House Lyrian, the death of the last High Speaker. How the war didn't end in victory, but decay. How no one had seen a living Adarii vessel since. "You were the last," he said to Ira. "And now you're found. By someone who doesn't know what he is." Nolan looked up. "What am I?" Cale didn't answer. Ira did. "You carry part of Veland's bloodline," she said. "Or an echo of it. Not by birth. Not by DNA. By imprint." Cale frowned. "A synthetic heir." "Not synthetic," she said, firm. "Living. Chosen by resonance." Nolan shifted uncomfortably. "So, I'm a copy of a dead guy?" "You're yourself," she said. "But something in you was shaped to fit the lock." Cale rose. "And what happens when the Real thing comes back?" Nolan looked up. "What does that mean? What if Veland's not dead?" "He is," Ira said. "I felt him die." Cale's eyes didn't move from hers. "You felt me disappear once too." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Nolan stood. "I'm gonna check the ship systems." He left them alone. And the moment the door closed, Cale whispered, "You care for him." "I barely know him," Ira said. "But you care." She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "He's not you. Not your people. He can't protect you." "I don't need protecting." Cale looked away. "No, I suppose you don't." Then quietly, "But I wanted to." Nolan walked the ship's halls, hands in pockets. He wasn't angry. Not jealous, either. He didn't know how to be. Jealousy was for people with claims. He had none. He wasn't born to this. He wasn't meant for her. But she looked at him sometimes like she wanted to be. And that was enough to break him. He paused in front of a glowing panel. Pressed his palm to it. "What do I do?" he asked the ship. The lights pulsed once. Then a voice, softer than Ira's, older than Cale's, whispered through the walls. "Stay." In the memory room, Ira showed Cale the vision. She had touched the memory vault, one Nolan had accidentally triggered days ago. It showed Veland's last moments, him running, carrying a child, whispering code to the ship. Cale watched in silence. When it ended, he looked at her with glassy eyes. "He saved you." "He saved the ship," she corrected. "I saved myself by surviving." Cale sat beside her. Not close enough to touch. "And now?" "Now I have to decide what comes next." "And what do you want?" She looked away. "I don't know." 3 days passed. Nolan avoided eye contact. Cale trained in the ship's old chamber, moving like a man who had nothing left to fight for but still needed to fight. Ira watched them both. Two men who had given up everything. One by walking away. The other by never knowing what he had to begin with. She didn't know who to choose. Or if she needed to choose at all. On the fourth night, the signal returned. But this time, it wasn't a call. It was a threat. They know where we are, Kale said, reading the data. And they're not coming to talk. 3 vessels. Unmarked. Moving like predators through black. Nolan stepped beside him. I fought exactly 1 drone and almost died. Kale smiled faintly. Welcome to royalty. Ira placed a hand on the ship's helm. We don't run. Then we fight, Kale said. Nolan looked at her. She met his eyes. And said, softly, stay with me. His voice barely a whisper, always. The stars whispered long before Leary learned how to listen. Her people called it soul sight, the gift to see with the mind, not the eyes. She had been born without physical vision, but she saw deeper than most. Not just shapes and motion, but memory. Echoes. Light not from suns, but from the past. She mapped the stars by emotion. She felt the pain of dying planets like tremors through her chest. Joy from newborn systems thrummed like soft music across her skin. Time meant nothing. The galaxy sang to her always, and she, in turn, marked its song. She lived alone on a drifting observatory called Lavian, a relic built into the bones of a collapsed moon. No crew. No noise. Only the gentle, constant hum of stars breathing. Until she heard him. Not in voice. Not in mind. In resonance. A pulse across space, gentle and confused, vibrating with sorrow and awe. The star map lit up like lightning. And there he was, Nolan. And with him, Ira. The ship's light hummed again. And with it, something else, Kale. His presence cracked like dry ice across her senses. Broken nobility. Untouchable longing. Leary had never felt anything like this convergence before. She stood, whispering into her ship's windless air. So. The veil breaks. She set course immediately. Nolan stood at the observation window, staring out at the endless stretch of stars. The lights outside blinked quietly, almost comfortingly. But the weight in his chest had not eased since Kale arrived. He didn't hate the man. How could he? Kale was brave. Sharp. Confident. The kind of person who belonged to Ira's world. He moved like a command. He looked like a memory. And worse, he remembered things about Ira that Nolan could never touch. And yet. She hadn't sent Nolan away. She had asked him to stay. Was that love? Duty? Some echo of Velan? He didn't know. He only knew that when she stood beside him, even without speaking, the ache of not belonging faded for just a moment. You keep standing here like you're waiting for something, a voice said behind him. Nolan turned. Ira. Barefoot, her steps nearly silent, her long robe trailing just above the floor. Maybe I am, he said. Or maybe I'm hiding. From Kale? From your past. She didn't laugh. But her smile curved gently, like wind pushing soft against stone. My past hurts, she said. You don't. I don't think I'm enough for what you are. You are not meant to replace what was. You're meant to show me what could be. He looked at her. Not as a prince. Not as a hero. Just as a man with tired hands and a gentle heart. What do you see in me? He asked, voice barely audible. Ira reached out, and this time, she did not hesitate. She touched his face. Traced the edge of his jaw. Let her fingers brush the stubble he hadn't bothered shaving. And softly, almost like a vow, peace. The ship shook. A low rumble through the bones of Severa. Kale appeared in the hall seconds later. "We're being hailed," he said. Ira nodded. "Enemy?" "Not sure. Energy signature is strange. It's approaching fast." Nolan moved toward the console. "Should we run?" "Not yet," Kale said. "It's different." They watched the signal draw near. Then it stopped. Right outside sensor range. And sent one word. "Open." Ira raised her hand. The ship responded. And into their orbit came a vessel not shaped like war, but like a song. A crescent moon carved into silver, pulsing softly. Then a voice. Female. Warm. Steady. "I am Leary. I come with memory. And warning." Leary stepped off her ship as though she had always known these halls. She walked with her head slightly tilted, eyes a soft opal gray. No pupils. No irises. But her gaze found each of them anyway. "Nolan," she said, reaching for his hand. He hesitated. Then took hers. And felt a rush, like touching light underwater. "You were not born for this," she said. "But the galaxy chose you anyway." Then she turned to Ira. "You carry grief like armor. It does not suit you." And finally, Kale. "You want to fight the future because the past forgot your name." He narrowed his eyes. "What are you?" "A witness," she said. "To what comes next." They gathered in the star room. Maps surrounded them, lines of light dancing through a sphere the size of a dome. The stars hummed gently. Leary stepped to the center. "I felt your echo across the outer span," she said. Nolan's awakening sent ripples. "They are already coming." "Who?" Ira asked. "The shadow that mimics the shape of love. The one that used to be a man." Kale stiffened. "You mean?" "Elric," she whispered. Nolan frowned. "Who's that?" Ira turned her face away. "He was once my betrothed. Before Velan. Before the war." Kale's voice went cold. "He betrayed the code." "He didn't just betray it," Leary said. "He merged with the corrupted AI during the purge. He is no longer a Darii. No longer alive in the way we understand. But he remembers." Ira's breath shuddered. Nolan reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "He wants you," Leary said. "Or rather, the idea of you. The last thread of what he once called his." "But I was never his," Ira said. "Does obsession care?" Later, in the quiet of the observatory dome, Kale found Leary watching the stars. "You're calm for someone who sees death coming," he said. "I've seen it before. Many times. You see futures. I see truths." He sat beside her. "And mine. You walk in fire." He didn't flinch. "Sounds right." She turned her head toward him, even though her eyes could not focus. "But inside you," she said, "is something still soft. You pretend it's gone. But it's not." Kale's throat tightened. "What good is softness in war? It tells you what to protect." Their hands rested side by side. Not touching. But not far. Nolan lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his chamber. He could feel her beside him. Not physically. Not tonight. But emotionally. He'd never known what it meant to be chosen. To be needed. But in that silence, he whispered one thing to himself. Don't let go. Across space, on the edge of known systems, a ship pulsed black and red. Inside, a man stood at the helm. Or what remained of him. His body had long since abandoned flesh. But his mind, burned into the core of the AI, lived. Elric. He watched the star map pulse with echoes. And said one word. Ira. Then turned to his silent crew, synthetic, faceless. Prepare to jump. The stars twisted. And the final chase began.